Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink is by Levenger's, and was provided by the wonderful, mysterious Benefactor when they sent me this Levenger sample set, which you get one cartridge of their inks, and I think it's like 12 different inks, but you actually get 3 of Cobalt Blue and 3 of Raven Black. And so today's is Cobalt Blue, which is, I mean, they have a bunch of different blues. They have sort of like a light turquoise, they have a medium blue. Cobalt's sort of like their dark, like rich blue, like maybe a royal blue almost. And then Empyrean is more like their navy blue, their dark, dark blue. Okay, now I'm going to show you this ink live and in person. This is an architect nib on a JinHao. This is my last cartridge of this because I was quite enjoying it. Now, hopefully you'll be able to see it's a wonderful dark rich blue. It's a bold blue, and we're just going to set that aside for a second. Now the pens that were used for these tests are this JinHao X750 with sort of the standard medium nib. This one, that day, was actually running a bit wet, which I guess isn't too odd. And then this Italix Parson's Essential with a broad nib. Now, I don't know how common this is for other people, but a lot of times the tined separation on my broad nib makes it so that, you know, I kind of have to, I don't know, it writes kind of dry. Sometimes I have to tap it to get the ink to come out. Yeah, so weirdly, the broad nib was wetter than the medium. Now, let's check out the chromatography. And this is some interesting chromatography. You can definitely see where the initial drop was put. And then sort of some light blue, and then like you almost get like little hints of purplishness there. And I hope this will come through on camera. You get sheen in the chromatography test. Now, I let it dry, where the dot most certainly became much more noticeable, but it also like spread in all directions. The initial drop was not that large, and then the separation is much the same, and you still get this red sheen up at the top. Now let's see. Yep. See that? This stuff sheens like crazy. So it's a very dense ink. There's a lot of stuff in this ink. Now, paper test, top down in density, Clairefontaine 90 grams per square meter. Try and hold this still. Yep. Bold, rich blue, wonderful shade, has the tiny, tiny, tiny undertone of purple, but I think that's just because there is red sheen everywhere. Oh, you see that? I mean, it's all through the writing, and because the JinHao is actually writing kind of wet, it's actually most noticeable there. And it's just sort of this micro-thin haze in the scrubby. But yeah, so the JinHao, which you can see was most certainly wet, took 13 seconds. The stub took 8, but bear in mind that's the flat edge of the stub pulling the ink down. So yeah, just wonderful rich color. However, something that does tend to happen with Levenger inks is rather a bit like what I've come to call diatramentus syndrome. A lot of times, once you put it in a pen and, you know, in this case, you know, puncture the cartridge, the longer you leave it in a pen, the more troublesome it becomes. So I hope I'll be able to get this on camera. Come on, camera, focus on what I want. You see that? See the feathering? Yeah, it feathers a bit sometimes, but I mean, it's a wonderful rich blue, and except for a few instances, I mean, it almost looks like it wants to come through in a couple spots, but yeah, there's no spread. For the most part, it's well behaved. When it's fresh, it's fantastic. It does make a big honkin' mess, though. Essentially what sheen is, as I understand it, is that essentially all the particles in that ink are still resting on top of the page. So when you add more water, you're just going to sort of spread those particles out. So it really did dye the page, and a lot of it's gone. And what's there kind of feathered and exploded, that would not be easy or fun to try and recover. Next up is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter. Again, wonderful, dark, rich blue. Tiny, tiny hint of purpliness, but that's because you still get that red sheen. Hopefully Oh yeah, I mean you can see it. It's flashing through there. But again, we get some feathering. Yeah, so now the wet medium took 12 seconds to dry. The stub took 6, but again, that's the flat edge of the nib. You do get, I mean, it's lovely shading. The color is fantastic. The sheen is so much fun. It really did start to remind me of Private Reserve's Electric DC Blue, which admittedly is one of my favorite blue inks. But all that sheen and all that, I mean, it requires some maintenance. You know, it's a dense ink. You got to wash it carefully. So, yeah, and it made a mess. It dyed the page. What's there is mostly washed away. It did feather and explode a bit. Now, I did lay it on really thick trying to get some sheen there, so I'd say that's user error. But again, in a few spots you can see where it almost wants to come through. Now, I can't remember how long it was in this pen, because actually this was the first ink I tested, so it was ages ago. But yeah. Anyway, so Tomoe River Paper, known for bringing out sheen, and boy howdy does it. I mean, it is literally everywhere. It is touching everything. It is all over the place. So it gives that dark, rich blue, definitely, most assuredly, just that little hint of purple. Now, oh, look, even the smear test has some sheen in it. That's hilarious. So the wet medium took 16 seconds. The broad italic took 9. It's wonderful. This is a wonderful, wonderful ink. Yeah, it's great. There's no bleed, no feather, no spread, as you would expect with Tomoe River. It doesn't do that. However, this is a very dark blue, and this is extremely thin ink, so echo is most assuredly, I can talk, a problem you should be aware of if you're thinking of pairing these two and insist on writing both sides of the page. Now, this paper loves to let ink slide away when you add more water, and that's really what happened here. You definitely get a haze on the paper where the ink used to be. This is extremely light. Be hard to read. Now, because of how this whole thing was happening, I started just using the Broad Italic Stub because it's generally drier writing, and that flat edge of the nib tends to drag the ink around, so I thought it would be fairer for the more absorbent papers, which it kind of was. But how fair can you really be with a broad nib? So, yeah, wonderful color. It does not lose that bright, bold blue color. It loses some of the purple hints, I think, just because there's just no sheen, finally. But, yeah, there's a bit of spread. Not a ton, but some. It took 3 seconds to dry. You don't really get much feathering. Where you do it, it's things like the dots. You mostly get a slightly woolly texture, so that's nice, but yeah. I mean, this paper is awful. This is god-awful paper. So you can see where it's seeped fully into the paper, so something to be cautious of. But yeah, because it's more absorbent, it sucks the ink in, making it harder to wash out. So what's there is actually very dark and very clear. It just sort of feathers in a few spots. Interesting. Next up is Mead Notebook Paper, which is actually thinner in density than the 20-pound Copier Paper. But this blue is still so rich and vibrant. There's no sheen here either. Shocker. But it took 2 seconds to dry. Yeah, I mean, you get like a woolly texture, but I don't know if I'd say that it's like full feathering. However, since this paper is so darn thin, you do get this, where you can practically read it from the other side despite the light hitting it. So if that's something you're sensitive to, and for some reason you just absolutely must write on both sides of Mead paper, maybe think of a different ink. But again, it's more absorbent, so it sucks the ink in, makes it harder to wash out, and generally things feather and explode a lot more when you add water on here, so actually pretty clear. That was nice. Now, full disclosure, this is some of that Moleskine paper that is freakishly well behaved from about 10-12 years ago. You see how the back is shiny? I cannot guarantee such results with modern accurate Moleskine paper. This was before I realized just how freakishly inaccurate this paper was. As I said, this was the first Levenger's ink I tested, so this is an old test. But yeah, for some reason on here, there's still sheen. For some reason on here, there's no feathering. For some reason on here, there's no bleed. Yeah, I really can't guarantee these results, but you know what? I have it in a pen. I should have. Anyways, 12 seconds to dry, which makes no sense because it didn't take that long in the stub, like anywhere ever. Weird. Yeah, you know, I feel like I can't even. Bleh. Anyways, there you go. There's Levenger's Cobalt Blue. It is a wonderful, dark, rich, deep blue. It has this incredible red sheen. It is a very dense ink. You will want to do the due diligence of cleaning out your pen afterwards. Is that a deal breaker? No. No, it's a great ink. It's lovely. But as it can be with some Levenger inks, always better when fresh. So, yeah. For your consideration from the Triple N Network, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching.